All right, today I'm excited to welcome Michael Cole to the show. Michael, thanks for joining me. How's it going today?
Man, it's going great. Thanks for having me, Brian.
Absolutely, absolutely. On the show, we like to talk about the journey people took to get where they're at, but to kind of to start that out, I like to let the guest introduce themselves to the audience, let them know who they are now, and then we'll figure out how you got there. So, could you introduce yourself to the audience, let them know who you are and what you have going on now, and we'll circle back and figure it out.
Yep, Michael Cole. I am the president and founder of Next Level Technician. We're a niche staffing organization in the low voltage space. Structured cabling, security, fiber optics. We help staff techs across the country.
Oh, nice, nice, nice. So, um, that is that something? Let's go back to when you were a kid. Maybe high school. Is this exactly what you thought you saw yourself doing when you were a kid, or did you want to be a baseball player, fireman, some wild thing, or did you want to be a business owner?
Yeah, Brian, I still don't know what I want to be right now. So I think that's a loaded question. But no, actually, funny enough, I think it was about high school. I remember vaguely, I really wanted to own a restaurant, is what I wanted to
Nice.
do. And surprisingly enough, that was the path I took. I went into hospitality management after high school and college. And wound up in the restaurant industry. And I did every job imaginable you can think of within the restaurants. I actually did even own a franchise of a restaurant at one point as well. So I think from a young age, that entrepreneurial itch was there, but it was more focused on the restaurant industry than what I'm currently doing now.
Gotcha. Yeah, I did a stint about a decade behind the bar and as a server, and it was something that it wasn't that my lifelong dream. I had gone to college, had no idea what I wanted to do, and got a part-time job bartending and loved it, and didn't realize that I couldn't retire doing that. So I was making good money and decided to roll with it. So you went to school for restaurant management and kind of proceeded through there, and what jumped you to technician staffing? It sounds like a kind of completely different angle there.
Completely out of left field comparative to where my life journey took me to that point. So I was in the restaurant industry for a while, and as you kind of alluded to, being the bartender and the hours and everything, it's a different world that you have to be really prepared for. So it kind of got a little, working 80-hour shifts, and no matter how hard you worked, your salary was your salary. And part of that I didn't always love, right? Like if I'm busting my butt, I want to see fruits of my labor, right? So a buddy of mine actually got me involved with a distribution channel called Accutech. They're a great company, and they sell the product to contractors that go out and install structured cabling, fiber optics, security, AV, fire alarm. So I started doing that. Even then didn't know if that's something I was going to love or want to do, but at least it was sales. So I could see the result of my efforts. So toyed around that for a while, about,
So that was like entry level sales. You just kind
yeah.
of took a leap and switched whole hog and went and started to learn that industry. Um, was it something you fell in love with, or was it just a job to get by until you figured out what you wanted to do?
So I actually fell in love with the people in the industry. Oddly enough, it kind of reminded me of the restaurant industry. And a lot of them came from the restaurant industry too, which is funny. Just kind of hard nosed workers, but they like to play hard, and it kind of fit my mentality. So at first, I had no clue what I was doing. Right, new industry, you jump in. So fast forward a year, I kind of started to get the hang of what the industry really was, and dove deeper into not just like the basic understanding of it, but really trying to like, what are these contractors doing? How are they installing this material? Not just like what we had on the shelf, and I had to figure out how to get it, but making everything kind of match together. And so it took a good year, but yeah, once I kind of got the bug, we always make the joke that once you're in this industry, you can't get out.
It's funny. So I read your Podmatch profile about your company you currently have, and when you mentioned you went hospitality, it's really funny because I left hospitality and actually went into technician on the technician side, maintenance technician, wastewater technician. I worked for a startup that did waste plastic to synthetic crude oil, and I was their technical lead. And it was a smooth transition because I had that brain that, when I grew up, my dad was always teaching me how to do shit, and so it made sense because you could get in entry level and still make a decent wage, and then as you acquire skills, you move on. But when you describe the type of folks that came from the hospitality industry, I was like, yep,
Mhm.
yeah,
Yeah.
there it is. So it was you fell in love with the folks you were selling to, and you went the right way about it, and learned the customer, I mean the quote unquote
Mhm.
customer, to sell your product better, I assume. And where did we go from there?
Yeah. So, oddly enough, I'd been doing this for, I think I was in there for 10 years or so
Oh,
on the sales side, and I did outside sales, inside sales, kind of did a little bit of everything during my stint on the distribution side. So, but the same nagging problem kept coming up. Hey, if you're any techs looking, if you know of a project manager, if all these things that I had no like, man, I'm just buy this box of cable and leave me alone, man, so I can make my commission.
right.
And I was actually volunteering. At a local youth organization that takes troubled youth in and gives them a home. And one of the kids was telling me that, he wanted to go into the military after high school. And it was just one of those situations where I was worried, like maybe the military wasn't even the right avenue for him as well. And then what avenue does a kid have, right? Like
Right.
if they're not going to further their education and maybe the military is not for them, like what's left? And I realized, hey, I'm in the blue collar trade that we could teach people how to do this, right? Like, this isn't rocket science. And if I have all these clients that keep asking me about it, like, how do I marry that? And I remember driving home that day, and I called my buddy Jeff, and I said, "Hey, man," he was a manager for a contractor. I said, I got this idea. You want in? And so he helped me put together a training program, and that's kind of all it started off with. I was just going to keep people. I was going to keep my full time job in the sales side, and just try to bridge that gap a little bit at a time. And fast forward, here we are today, because the training part essentially led to the staffing, which was kind of cool.
Right, right. I mean, you end up with a bunch of trained talent, and you already had people asking you to find them for you, or if you
Mhm.
knew anybody. So did it started out basically as a trade school light, I assume, or similar?
Yeah, so I just started attacking local high schools, local colleges, some different youth organizations, just anyone interested at all. And surprisingly enough, I got some good feedback. And more surprisingly, I got a lot of people that were like, no, not interested. College route, technical route, like the blue collar trades, I think just have such a stigma around them these days that like we got to break because hate to break the news to everybody, but in the next 5 years, 50% of that workforce is gone. And I mean, that's public roads, utility. I mean, you name it, we're going to be in big trouble if we don't, keep preaching this. So, but yeah, so just started working around that avenue and got a handful of young individuals that were interested in learning the trade.
Then that was all in the structured cabling, cable distributions, and that field.
Mhm.
Have you stayed in that tight niche, or have you branched out at all in other trades?
Yeah, so we've kind of stayed niche to the low voltage market. We have just started to dip our toe in the IT space for the staffing side of that, because obviously that's not going anywhere either. But we kind of really centered around that low voltage because everything's wireless, quote unquote. There's a lot of wires that go into making that work, and with the Internet of Things evolving, pretty much everything touches the low voltage the networks now. So structured cabling, I mean, your access control, security, which is a huge thing right now, security cameras, fire alarm. It's all kind of going back to the Internet of Things that's driving a lot of what we're doing here at Next Level.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually in the process of building a structure and like a cabin, and it's I want to pre-wire things to be wireless, to be
Yeah.
automated, but it's all pre-wired. It's not wireless.
Yeah.
There has to be a connection there somewhere. I have acquired these skills along the way, but I could see it being a valuable resource for kids coming out of school. And I was in that boat that you talked about, that there really wasn't the right option. I'm getting towards the was getting towards the end of high school. I was in the mid '90s, and parents wanted me to go to college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I didn't want to go because, like you said, there's a stigma, especially I think it's breaking a little bit, but that stigma of the blue collar worker in the 90s was like, yeah, you're just gonna throw your smarts away. Like my smarts could have done really well in a blue collar trade, but I went and threw it away and became a bartender, basically. So
Yeah, no, you're hitting the nail on the head, and it's something that even I struggle with as a parent, right? Like you want to see your kid grow up and flourish, and a lot of push has been on the educational system, but the fact of the matter is it's just not for everybody, right? Like, I mean, even with me, I went to college because I felt like I had to, but I spent those 4 years partying and get to know people, So if anything, that restaurant experience really helped me more than anything because it taught me how to talk to people, how to network, and do a lot of the things that I still do to this day. So that's why we just want to keep pushing. And construction as a whole, blue collar work as a whole, I think has a long way to come because there's still companies that low bid things, which causes less pay for employees and things like that. So there's a lot more of the business that really gets into the weeds with things that we need to work on. But yeah, it's a great career path for people that want to be out, be moving, work with their hands. It's incredible the opportunities that are out there right now.
yeah, we had an interesting situation with our startup where we needed technical brains on a unskilled labor budget. As a
Mhm.
startup, your payroll is one thing that you really have to watch. So we were trying to interview people, and I felt that I was pretty decent at it, but have that conversation with them to understand what they could learn, what they could understand, not necessarily their already acquired skills, because our payroll was going to be lower then. Is when they when people use your program, do they come out with a certification? Are they coming out at a higher, I don't want to say pay grade, but value, bringing to the market a higher value, or are they still going to be coming in at that entry level with the knowledge set to succeed?
Sure, yeah, and some things have changed since we started, right? And that was the main thing when we started. But yeah, so we're revamping what that looks like because from a scalability level, now that we're in just about every state in the country, it's been very hard to continue that training on a mass scale, right? We have a full-time trainer here, so we're actually he was sending me videos today, which were pretty cool. We're working on a way to do this virtually. Which I think is going to be awesome, and they will graduate certificate. And you hit the nail on the head. There will be value added to coming through a program like ours in our industry because there's nothing like it.
Right.
And we're going to be able to take someone that has no prior experience and give them at least the bare minimum to step foot on site day one, which is half the challenge is getting people just to show up. And I love what you just said there about you needed skilled labor on a green budget, I guess, in a way. But right now, we're really pushing hard for people to rethink what that looks like. Find the individuals that really want to learn and do the job vetting them, and that's something we do very well here at Next Level Technician. Is that we can kind of get in the nitty gritty of digging deep into people's background. And the best technicians we've produced have been the ones that had minimal skill set, if not any, to start with.
Yeah, it was a struggle between me coming from the blue collar, and I ended up in the position. I interviewed for like the guy sweeping, not sweeping the floors, but like that factory worker job.
Mhm.
And in their interview, they weren't even interviewing for the position that I got, but they said, "Oh wow, this skill set that you have, and your interview, we should put you here." And exceeded because I change industries like I change my underwear, man. I'm not afraid to take a step back, learn new
Yeah.
skills, acquire new things, but it also comes with a pay cut. And going into applying for a job off of Craigslist for a startup, I knew I wasn't going to get paid what I was worth, but I knew I could go in and work to what I was worth.
Yep.
Um, Interviewing people and trying to find those, dude, did you buy a grill lately? Did you have Home Depot put it together, or did you bring it home and put it together yourself? Those answers really, like, it made me learn a lot about those people, and I had a pretty good success finding the ones that were willing to learn, like you said, the wanting and desire to learn and the ability to comprehend things.
Yeah, and I want to touch base real quick on what you just said because I think we need to talk about that a lot more than what we do. Taking steps back to take a step forward. I call it the slingshot approach here. You know, everyone wants to make as much money as possible. What you just said resonated a little bit with me about how you're going to work to that level, right? And I think anytime you can just get an opportunity in a field you're interested in, take it. And like you said, if it doesn't work out, move on, do the right thing, right? Obviously quit properly and do all the right things, but then move on, because never burn a bridge, right? Like countless times that I've had to call on people that I've walked away from relationships or whatever reason in a good way, just to say, hey, can you refer me here? Do you know this person? But especially in like in the trades industry, like get in there and show your worth. But the biggest thing and misconception I think people think is that just because they got into the trade, they're going to automatically make this incredibly amount of money overnight, right? Like
Right.
it's going to take you a year just to understand what you're doing, sweeping the floors, right? Like, why are you sweeping the floors? What time? Like what you just said. Same with our industry. Like, you need a good year to understand why are you doing X, Y, and Z in this order. And then from there, if you don't have that game plan of where after that year you could see your career going, you probably do need to change. Or maybe you're just happy as can be doing that, but understand there's a level of pay that comes with the level of work you're ultimately doing. And so I think when people look at the trades, they really need to look at where do you want to be in 10 years from now, not where do you want to be today. And too many people think tomorrow dollars versus 10 years dollars, right? And I try to always encourage people, and it's on our website. We have a kind of a roadmap of if you start in our industry, where you should be and how long it will take you to get there, and the different skill sets you're going to have to acquire. Because I don't want someone to just get in this and essentially climb a ladder all day. Like that's no fun. I want you to advance your skill set, advance your career, and ultimately be a project manager. Maybe you own your own business one day. There's just so many paths to take, but if you don't know how to take them, then you never will.
Yeah. My MO was always, get that job and get in the door and look around the first week and figure out who you wanted to be there and watch them. Learn your job, but watch that guy you want to be and figure out what he's doing, learn what he's doing, because eventually you'll have the opportunity, hopefully, to move there, whether it be inside that organization or somewhere else.
And you just hit the nail on it. It might be somewhere else because, right, some of these contractors we're working with, especially in blue collar, they could be mom and pop shops. They could be publicly traded companies. So that's the other thing you have to look at is you might hit your ceiling where you're at, and then that's when you need to start taking your skills to other places. And as long as you do things the right way, like quitting in my mind isn't the worst thing ever. If you've reached the maximum you've tried and you've worked with that client or the company you're working with, it's okay to leave to make yourself better somewhere else. You just do it the right way.
And the other thing is if you've identified that that company really isn't you. I've been in situations where the company insisted on me doing something or required me, and I just I don't know if I want to work for a company that does this. Nothing against them. That's their company. They started it. They own it. That's their decision. But that's also my decision to align myself somewhere else. So there is that too. But there was also value gained from working there. They're not a crappy company. They taught me what I know. So there is that balance too.
Yeah, and in the blue collar, it just in general, like that's a tough one, and that's another one of those things I think we need to work a lot harder on. And I think a lot of them, a lot of companies started a long time ago, right? And they're generational, whatever that looks like. And so we need to catch up to today's mentality of COVID changed a lot of things. We went to work remote and all these different things, but when you're in the blue collar trade, that's not a thing. However, there's a lot of technology out there to allow to make people's jobs easier. There's scheduling technologies that make things easier. And it still seems to be, for some reason in the construction world, it's a lot of fly by the seat of your pants. And like you said, it's, hey, can you work this weekend? Even though I know you just put in your 40, there's a lot of things, and we got to find that flexibility, because I do think there's a place in the trades where we can kind of meet today's modern, not remote work, but maybe hybrid schedules. There's a way to couple things where maybe we look at different scheduling techniques where, 4x10s, where essentially someone works 4 days, 10 hours a day. That's a really popular thing right now. So that way they have Friday through Sunday off to kind of recharge and recoup. There's just a lot of different things that we could probably look at differently and start to change the way this industry looks moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, you really encapsulated the last decade of me finding companies that were stuck in old methods, and you try to bring things to them, and it's like, nope, this is how we do it. This is how we do it. It's always that old monkey climbing up to grab the bananas, and they get squirted with the water, and eventually no one's ever been squirted by the water, but they all won't go grab the bananas type analogy.
Yep.
Uh, so you started. Let's get back
Yeah.
to next level. You started building that. You started as a training, and realized that now you have trained people and want to you can help staff industry, so that helps both the companies and the people you're training. How did you grow this, and any big breaks along the way as this has kind of been evolving?
Yeah, so I think really the biggest break came in the fact that I was still thinking about this training concept, and Jeff, who helped get that going, was like, "Hey, I just get first dibs on whoever graduates the class," and that's what kind of like he was like, "That's what staffing is." I'm like, "Oh, okay, let's explore that. That sounds like it pays way better." So that's kind of the first sign of I was like, maybe I'm onto something here. And so as we got through some of these green trainings, I just continued to have some of my contacts reach out saying, "Hey, this is great, but I really now need this skill level that you just can't train for. So can you help me find that person?" And the more of those calls I kept getting, kind of validated what I was doing and what NLT was doing as we grew from just me to now 20 plus employees, 200 plus technicians. So the one big break I will say I think we did find as an organization is kind of back to the use of technology. And so as we're vetting candidates, we're throwing them out blind. It was a phone call, maybe two phone calls, a couple text messages, and a drug and background check. And then that person's going to site. We've never met them. We've never like seen them because we're here in Charlotte, North Carolina, talking to people all over the country.
Right.
So we implemented a video interview process, which has been pretty instrumental into our growth. And to my knowledge, we're the only one in our niche market doing this, where we have a two-touch approach where we pre-screen, we make sure everything's good, and then we move them to a video interview that we record, and we're able to see, interact. They're able to get to know our team. We're able to get them know a little bit better now that we've had more than one interaction, just hoping for the best. And that has been game changing, because it's funny when you have someone that tells you they can work, in a high secure data center, but then don't know how to operate a Teams call. Big,
Right.
big red flags right there. And on the
Right.
flip side, for our contractors, they actually get to see these interviews. All of our technicians sign off that they approve that we can show these. And so it saves them countless hours during the interview process, because now instead of hoping that I'm giving them, a good resume and then they have to schedule an interview, they can just see our interview live.
Right, right, and then that cuts out, and that's one of the long things. I discussed that with somebody the other day. Was, if he posed a question in a group that said, if you were unemployed and you couldn't pay your bills and blah blah blah, and somebody told you that you don't need a job, you need money, and what that made you think of, and it immediately made me think of the long cycle of getting a job. From, like, say I apply today, that whole process. But if you've already cut the front end off of that initial interview, the screening for those companies, that really shortens that cycle, where they could probably feel comfortable with maybe one interview instead of four interviews. And you've done it for multiple, like, now you can put me out to multiple companies. I think that's really fantastic. It shortens that cycle, and I think everybody gets a better product in the end.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest benefits is using a company like ours, is that that cycle alone, even just finding the candidate for a company could take, finding the candidates and then actually going through that 4 to 5 interview process. I mean, that could take months for an employer to find potential candidates that, quite frankly, in the blue collar space, they don't have that time. They've got
No.
contracts, they got deadlines they have to hit. So our vetting process, the way we do things on the back end and the way we find candidates, we use so much technology that we're going to find that candidate. Even if you use the same technology of us, we've just gotten so good with it. And we know kind of like where the skeletons are buried and how to get away with certain things, that we're going to find that candidate faster than you, and probably anywhere from two weeks to a month anyways. And so it's been a huge benefit for them, because they know they can call us and we can turn it up as fast as possible. And I mean, some days they can call us same day and we can have candidates for them to review in a couple hours.
Nice. Is this cookie cutter? Can this go across other industries, do you think?
Oh yeah.
Is this something that is you're pursuing, or are you comfortable in your niche? Because I mean, obviously that's a wide swath of businesses in your niche.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a way to open this up to other industries. I think there's riches and niches, right? It's just kind of been my, and I know the industry. Everyone on our team knows the industry, so that really helps because what I've found from a staffing perspective is where staffing has gotten a bad rap is they throw a lot of people into it and they think it's just headhunting and recruiting. But
Right.
if you can't, when you're in a skilled trade, if you can't actively understand what you're interviewing for, then you might as well. I mean, it's the shotgun approach. It's never going to work. And so, while I do think this would work across the board, it won't for us because we know what we know and that's what we're good at. And so we're going to continue that. We're going to get involved in the IT. And I do think for anyone that might be interested in starting a staffing company, it would be easier to start one this way than if they already existed and try to change to our footprint, because we found that we've used technology, we've implemented it so much for larger companies to compete with us, it would cost them hundreds of thousands of dollars to try to do what we do in a large scale.
Gotcha. Hey, we're kind of coming up on time. It flies by when we just have a chat here. Can you let people know? I mean, if they're in your niche, both on the employee side and the employer side, how they could find you. Other than that, if people can find more out about you, your website or socials where they can find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Social, LinkedIn's my jam. That's usually where you can find me, Michael Cole. And then from the company standpoint, if you're someone looking for work in the low voltage field or IT field, or if you're someone that needs employees in that field, our website, nextleveltechnician.com, is the best place. And we have tons of resources on there. And then we even have a link to another website on there as well that you can learn more about some of our training offerings as well. So we've kind of broken it out, but it's all on nextleveltechnician.com.
Awesome, Michael. I appreciate you being here. I think this could be a value for a lot of people listening to the show that might be looking to change careers or could be in need of your services. I appreciate, like I said, appreciate you being here, and hopefully we talk to you soon.
Awesome, Brian. Thanks so much for having me, man.